So I was kind of curious, and I'm assuming I'll get somewhat of a response from this, but has anybody had any kind of complaints this week about anything at all? And just so you know, priests are not immune from this kind of natural tendency to want to complain when things aren't fair or aren't going our way or some injustice happened, or it could be as simple as, like the other day we were setting up for trivia night and we had to move this big heavy stage, and because of the type of shoes I like to wear, I dropped it on my toe and it really hurt. So I complained a little bit, but even all the priests of the diocese this week were just with our bishop, and we were finding ourselves gathered together, and you'd hear a pastor over here complain about how lazy his associate is, or you'd hear associates in the other corner talking about their pastor being workaholics and whatnot. So fortunately, me and Father Luke were not doing any of that. We were just hanging out together, having a good time. But we tend to have this problem in our lives, and it starts probably with small things, just little inconveniences. Every day, driving to the Walmart or Small Mart, whatever we call it, between St. Rita's and there, you might have complained 7 times about, 5 different drivers, because you might complain multiple times about one of them, or 7 times about one driver because they're really terrible. But it can build off of that. So then we might complain a little bit, or and it can turn to prayer sometimes. We complain about, I know a lot of families in today's world and even in our area are struggling because their kids are not interested in the faith anymore. And so we complain about, how do we get that? It hurts our heart, to think about that, and did I fail, or what did I do? And we find ourselves complaining and just asking questions, Lord, what's going on here? We did what we could, but then it can go further and further. We look at our world, and we look at our nation, and we find ourselves complaining about all these things that we think, or somebody else thinks, or what somebody told us was the right way that something should be done, and we just can complain. And it can take us to these really darker places. That's what the enemy wants us to start with, these small things, something that's just minuscule, that's not a big deal, like dropping a really heavy piece of metal on your toe. But then next thing you know, you're in this great despair about your life and what's going on around you. And you might ask those questions, where are you, Lord? All these things I hear at church every week, that you're with us and that you're here and you came to set us free. And in our minds sometimes we say, you came to make our life so easy and fluffy and beautiful. But not once in the Gospels or in the, after the Gospels, in the letters of the early church, do we hear that that's ever the case, that anything's ever supposed to be made easy, that Christ came to make everything easy for us. So to start to get in that place, that's the perfect little pathway that the enemy is trying to make us walk down, where we start with something small, it gets bigger and heavier and even more painful. Our pain that we experience, our suffering is real, but complaining about it is not what's going to ever take that away or do anything for us. And then we can get to the point where we're asking that question, where are you, Lord? I remember in my own life, just for several years after my family we lost our father, and me and my sisters were just kids. And I remember just being in that place where that question was always kind of around. Even when I went to church, even when I was at sports or at scouts or whatever I was doing, trying to live a normal life. But that question was always there about, where are you, Lord? In the midst of my affliction and my suffering, and when I'm alone or when I feel alone, where are you? That question was huge. And so praise God, when we give him the space to enter that question, let him respond to that question, it brings great peace and healing to our lives, if we give him that opportunity. So if you find yourself at any point, whether it is the small thing right now, or whether you're just in complete distress about our country, or complete distress about the church, or about other parts of the world, and you might be asking that question, where are you, Lord? I came across in my life, so after I started to kind of started becoming alive, the Lord was working big time in my own life. I got involved in the praise and worship. Some of y'all know this if you're parishioners here. And so I started getting involved with music and helping lead music in college. And there was a song that came out that just really spoke to me because it addressed this question of where are you, Lord? If we ever forget where the Lord is, we always already have the answer. It's right in front of us all the time, especially as Catholics. We wear it around our neck. We have it in our car on our dashboard at the end of our rosary. We always have the answer to where he is. But this song spoke to me in the midst of that. I just wanted to share it with you this morning. It's not a guitar song, it's a piano song, so I couldn't bring my guitar today, but so sorry if this is out of tune or off pitch. But it's from Matt Maher, and it's a beautiful song that he wrote on one of his earlier albums. Lost, everything is lost, and everything I've loved before is gone. Alone, like the coming of the frost, and the cold winter's chill in my stony heart. And where were you when all that I've hoped for? Where were you when all that I've dreamed came crashing down in shambles around me? You were on the cross. Pain, could you take away the pain? If I find someone to blame, would it make my life seem easier? Alone, all my friends are asleep, and I can't find anyone to stay awake with me. Where were you when sin stole my innocence? And where were you when I was ashamed? Hiding in a life I wish I never made. You were on the cross. So the cross is always where we find Jesus. So we can get caught up in it being, this torture, death trap, constructed by the Roman Empire. It can be a sign of defeat to the world. That's what people who oppose our teachings might think, is that Jesus was defeated on that day. But for us, it's the ultimate sign of hope. No matter what's going on, it's the sign of new life that was won on the cross. So when we're led, there was a beautiful little tiny description about how the cross leads us to where Jesus is trying to lead us and help us to follow him. True greatness consists in self-sacrifice and handing ourselves over for the sake of others. That's what authentic human greatness looks like, and it only mirrors what Jesus did, because Jesus was the just one. He never sinned like we do. We deserve what we get because of our sin. Jesus was perfect. He was the innocent lamb sent to the slaughter. So that's why he was able to conquer sin and death, and that's why it took him to the cross to break us free from sin and death. That's how he conquered sin and death, so that the cross is always that source of hope for us. So that whenever we're caught in our complaints, whenever we turn in on ourselves and just are bummed out about our life or our situation or what should have happened but didn't happen, all that stuff, that's life, and that's what happens when we're broken sinners. But if we continue to keep our eyes on Jesus and on the cross, we can never lose sight of that hope, because it reminds us we're entering the cross of our lives now, but one day we're going to carry that cross to the glory of resurrection. We're going to enter into the new life with Jesus. And so no matter what we're going through, if we're focused on him, so don't think of Peter. When he took his eyes off Christ, what happened? He started drowning. And so if we start taking our eyes off the cross, off Christ, that's what's going to happen to us in the struggles that we carry every day, that are very real, very painful. So this week, maybe that's something to think about. Where are we, whether it's in our complaints or in the real tragedy that we see in the world all around us? Are we keeping our eyes on Jesus, or do we take our eyes off to find out a different way that's going to solve all the world's problems? Because if we continue to do that, like Peter, we're going to drown and we'll never get to the bottom of it. But if we keep our eyes on Christ, one day we will be raised to glory.